Greetings, finders of both paths and stars. Today on Drift Lanes to Distant Worlds, we begin with a little bit of a pop quiz. Don't worry, it's simple, just one question. How many planets are in the Galarian system? And to avoid pedantic tricks, we're talking full planets, we're not including the Sun or the Adari. And don't say, oh well, it's one less cause Galarian disappeared, you know what I mean. The answer is 11. Look, I know there are quite a few Starfinder fans ready to add a bunch of actually comments. We'll get there when we get there, I promise, I'm making a point here. To illustrate that point, we need to head back in time to that wonderful bastion of widows' peaks and horrible people, the continent of Asland. The Aslanti often look towards the stars, and we've already talked about their out-of-this-world projects like the Moon Prison. So it makes sense they'd have a pretty good grasp of astronomy. You kinda need that in order to go to the moon. So why, out of all things, would they get the number of planets wrong? Because Aslanti records don't record there being 11 planets in the system, they record lucky 13. So what the heck, did we just lose 2 planets before we even started looking at the system? Where did they go? Why do our planets vanish like my left sock and car keys? And where in the world would they even fit? Well, you're smart, so you know the answer is after Verces, because that's where this video is. And as for what happened to them, well, Aslanti scholars write of a burst of light observed in the night sky, a stellar cataclysm that destroyed 2 planets in an instant. In their place was a ring of rocky debris that now circles the system, a belt of asteroids full of strange and wondrous sights. They witnessed the creation of distant worlds of the past, Diaspora, the Lost Ones. Damiar and Iova were 2 planets in a binary linked orbit. That means that in addition to orbiting the Sun, they also orbited each other, spinning around in a giant cosmic dance. Being this close to their neighbors, the 2 worlds were probably the first to develop interstellar communication and travel. After all, if the moon had started flashing hello world messages to us, I think space travel would have happened a lot faster on Earth too. The connected civilizations existed in harmony with one another, creating a unified federation that would likely have brought greater understanding of space travel to the whole system. Unfortunately, then they exploded. Shattered into thousands of rocky shards, which now spin slowly around the star. Why would they do that? Planets don't just explode. Well, obviously this happened thousands of years ago, so we don't entirely know why. There are a lot of theories, some of which blame the twins for their own destruction. Maybe the Federation fell apart and they destroyed each other in a mutual war. Or perhaps it was an accident born of unity, as an attempt to magically link the planets together for faster travel and trade went wrong, shattering the worlds instead. However, the most popular theory, and the one that I personally think is true and basically just treat as canon, is that their destruction had an outside source. The next planet in the system, Eox, suffered a cataclysm at roughly the same time Damiar and Iova were destroyed, and many believe this was the result of a powerful arcane weapon that Eox used against their neighbors. It would certainly explain a lot, and it fits together quite well, so again, that's what I think happened. Well, that's the end of this, right? We have a huge asteroid belt now instead of 2 cool planets. Let's move on to the future, where they're filled with mining companies and space pirates. No, of course not. The one time I actually had nothing to say about the past, I told you up front that was the case. I'm not gonna do this whole build-up bait and switch, unless it would be really funny, but that's not the case. The Diaspora, as it's now called, still has a few things to talk about. Let's start with the fact that it wasn't formed like a usual asteroid belt. It's not made up of leftover space trash that avoided being turned into planets. This is post-processed space trash, meaning if you're willing to scour the stellar junkyard, you can find a lot of valuable things. A lot of the twins' material wealth was obliterated with the planets, but some of the remnants are miles wide and hold treasures of an ancient alien culture ripe for the taking. Though many people who head out here looking for an easy score rarely return. Some of this has to do with outlaw aether ships from Verces who drift through the Diaspora like pirates on a terrestrial sea. Others fall victim to the strange machines that can sometimes be found leaping between the asteroids, using extremely precise calculations to make the journey, since unlike what you see in the movies, most objects in asteroid belts are so far apart you can fly through without seeing anything in any direction. But most that try to plunder Damiar and Iovo's bones meet opposition from an obvious source: the natives of those planets. Since they were a spacefaring species, not everyone was on the planet when they shattered, and some who were at home still luckily survived, through magic both arcane and divine. This small percentage of people have changed over the centuries, adapting to the void of space and their new asteroid homes. Called Sarkisians, they stand over 10 feet tall with large, luminescent wings that resemble a butterfly. Many people who first meet them compare the species to angels, though the resemblance is largely a coincidence. The Sarkisians can suspend their need to breathe somewhat indefinitely and use their energy wings to fly on solar winds, allowing them to travel through the void of space relatively easily. This isn't to say they are 100% adapted to live in the void. They do trace their lineage back to a species that lived on a somewhat normal planet, and they still need those conditions in order to be born and grow. They also have regular biological needs like food and water, so they're forced to find some way to survive in the scattered rock ring of the Diaspora. The solution is twofold. The first are creche worlds, large colonies built on an asteroid large enough to support one. Magical engines embedded deep inside the rock allow it to produce gravity and sustain a breathable atmosphere, which lets the miniature worlds host a small selection of pastoral villages. The Sarkisians are a long-lived and slow-growing species, whose numbers have never recovered to even a fraction of their pre-disaster levels. This makes them incredibly protective of their creche worlds, which they need to defend from Verces space pirates and rogue wizards looking to secure their secrets. One secret, lost even to the Sarkisians, is what created the most fantastical aspect of the Diaspora, the River Between. The River Between is a very literal river, magically created, which winds through the various asteroids of the Diaspora in a meandering path. The speed of the water is incredibly fast, allowing Sarkisians to swim between creche worlds at incredible speeds. None of them know how the river is created or fully maintained, its construction methods lost to time. The Sarkisians may not even be the creators of the river, which becomes a little more apparent when we talk about its start and endpoint. Nissus is a dwarf planet, one that actually formed naturally instead of being created. The exterior is more like a crust formed of ice and clay, under which is a massive ocean of water. Containing more water than some regular planets, Nissus was originally seen as the salvation of the Sarkisian people, big enough to contain the entirety of their species and serve as a new homeworld. They quickly constructed several settlements that hung from the surface of the planet into the water below. This proved to be a bad idea, as it exposed the Sarkisians to the things that live in the deep water. No one has seen what actually lurks down there in the dark that keeps taking groups that venture too far down, but rumors persist of long, scaled forms swimming in the depths. Nissus is still occupied, it's a fantastic source of fresh water and too important to abandon, but the Sarkisians keep to the shallow waters and travel in large groups for safety. Now, the Sarkisians aren't the only residents of the asteroid field. There are dark things that linger between the stars, who echo maddening whispers across the tapestry of creation. Their cultists burrow into the societal heart of every world, but their true power floats in the void with their masters, the Dominion of the Black. No one is sure if the Brothers of the Void, who live in the House of the Void out in the Diaspora, are members of one of these cults or not. Wearing concealing black robes, they sit in the silent dark, contemplating the void of space. Many of the asteroids have tunnels and chambers, either natural remnants of the twin planets or else created by the residents over time. Many of them are known to the people of the Diaspora, either as safe places or, more often, an area to avoid. Two notable places like that are the Vacant Halls and the Wailing Stone. The Vacant Halls are a maze of seemingly randomly created tunnels that vary wildly in terms of size and layout, though they are clearly not a natural phenomena. A few different explorers have attempted to map the halls and have been thwarted every time, the place seeming to shift at random. No one has found the heart of the Vacant Halls, which is rumored to contain fantastic riches. The Wailing Stone was once a settlement, likely Sarkisian, but we can't actually be sure. It was discovered by a group some 100 years ago, the interior quiet after all the residents had killed one another. Their death seems to have been terrifying and painful, with archaeologists finding more and more evidence of a group succumbing to void madness. A condition similar to space cabin fever. A variety of notes regarding something called the Sign were found, but before an actual answer could be located, the researchers themselves started falling victim to the same issue. The Sarkisians have quarantined the location to prevent whatever is causing the issue from spreading. The Diaspora is a small location, with very little to talk about, but that's also what makes it so good. It's condensed, let's say, efficient. The asteroids make for a good kind of closed room style setup for any adventure set out here. Imagine waking up in some kind of enclosed space and adventuring through, and eventually you find out you're in an asteroid belt. That's kind of a really cool twist at the end. Though once we head into the future, that all changes a lot. Drift Lanes of the Future, Diaspora, The Lost Ones. As with most things in Starfinder, the greater access to space travel has allowed more people the ability to reach the far-flung areas of space. Now the Diaspora is just a day trip away, meaning more people than ever can stop into the asteroid belt and see just what's going on here. This has led to a lot more of the disparate rocks that make up the Diaspora being mapped. Yet the lack of a central location throughout the belt means that if you want to remain in the Pact Worlds yet never be found, the Diaspora is the perfect place to do it. Disparate, displaced, displeased, or dispirate, so many people now make their home in the Diaspora. Gotta watch that alliteration, it'll infect you. While there are several standout magical and technological marvels dotting the various asteroids, most of the Diaspora is just barren rocks. Rocks that contain large amounts of untapped minerals of all kinds, just there for the taking. Mining companies from all across the Pact Worlds have holdings in the Diaspora, pulling tons of ore from barren rock for processing. Many of these companies are run by, and largely comprised of, dwarves. Like the humans, the dwarves of Galarian lost their home during the gap, but they didn't claim Absalom Station the same way humans did. Instead, the dwarves took inspiration from the sky citadels of their home to create massive fortress ships. Called Star Citadels, these roaming fortress ships are the cornerstone of dwarven culture in the future. The first and most famous Star Citadel is Harrowhod, which resembles a giant dwarven face carved into an asteroid. Dwarven culture focuses a lot on family and tradition, which the Gap threw into chaos. In addition to their home planet of Golarion, the dwarves lost the leader of their pantheon, Torag. No one knows where he's gone, though most believe he's watching over Lost Golarion wherever it may be. These losses have pushed the dwarves to do whatever they can to connect to their past, and the residents of Harrowhod spend decades learning meditation techniques that allow them to contact their ancestors for guidance and wisdom. Because Harrowhod is also the headquarters for many dwarven mining companies, there are hundreds of ships flying in and out making deliveries, which also makes it a prime target for many pirates that live in the Diaspora. Might as well talk about them next. The Diaspora is the perfect place for pirates to lurk. It's close to major ports in the Pact Worlds, but remote enough to hide out in. The many asteroids provide cover from scanners, and the presence of other pirates means they always have customers willing to purchase stolen goods without asking too many questions. Piracy's actually proven so popular that Besmara, the goddess of piracy, has moved up to a major status in the Pact Worlds, eclipsing other deities that were far more popular pre-Gap. Believe it or not, the pirates here actually have their own elected governing body, based in the Diaspora. In the early days, the various pirates lived a simple, every man for themselves life. This was actually pretty bad for them, because crews constantly fighting each other for plunder were easy pickings for stewards and independent security. To change things, the largest and strongest crews gathered together on a large remote asteroid in the Diaspora. Inside a crevice called Besmara's Smile, they hashed out the first iteration of the Free Captain's Code and formed the first Pirate Council. Today, the Pirate Council rules from inside Broken Rock, the hidden Free Captain stronghold in the Diaspora. The exact location of Broken Rock is known only to a Free Captain and those they trust, and that trust is hard to win and easy to break. Even if someone were to find out how to get to Broken Rock, the asteroid has a defensive battery to rival any battleship and an armada of pirate gangs ready to jump to its defense. The Free Captains tie the portion of their plunder to Broken Rock, which use the accrued wealth to support crews during lean times and keep things running in the largely lawless frontier. The anarchic collection of captains are generally quite unified in protecting each other and acting in their own best interests. Except when the stewards start asking too many questions, then they're just a loose collective of individuals with no real connection, you know? I mean, it's not like I know the guy, he's like a friend of a friend, I met him at a party once, and honestly, I don't think I even remember his name. Why am I even here again? Right, the Free Captains. The Free Captain's Code has changed quite a bit over the centuries, but there are 4 tenets that have remained consistent. The Free Captains don't fight each other unless it's a sanctioned duel. Anyone who pays the protection fee is to be left alone. If someone freely negotiates a deal with a Free Captain, that deal must be honored. And lastly, any crew member is free to leave at port, but must serve with loyalty while on a voyage, fighting to the death to defend their ship. The Pirates Council enforces these codes with lethal efficiency, and none of the Free Captains want to defy the Council, especially because there's always a chance they could join it. When a council member dies or retires, any Free Captain can nominate someone as a replacement, provided they can get to Broken Rock and put the name in within a month of the position opening. Once the nomination period ends, any Free Captain can vote in the election for the replacement, but they must do so in person. Because most will choose to stay for the entire voting period after they arrive, an election ends up being another excuse to meet up and party at Broken Rock, especially since the prospective council members are usually footing the bill. One such election is currently taking place, as Saris Hightower, the longest-serving member of the council, recently perished. The competition for her spot is highly contested. But while the Free Captains might be an effective government for what they aren't a legitimate one in the eyes of the Pact Worlds. For most of its history, the Diaspora has been a protectorate of the Pact Worlds rather than a full member, and many of its larger communities sent representatives to advocate for their interests. Some Sarkeesians have pushed to be recognized as a full member, and they recently got their wish, with the Diaspora becoming a full member of the Pact in 323. However, it's kinda weird because the Sarkeesians don't have a centralized government and don't seem particularly concerned about creating one even as a full member of the Pact. As a species, the Sarkeesians tend to be very unconcerned with collective affairs. They heavily value individual freedom and rarely impose their own will onto others. The closest they even have to a capital is the Kresh world of Sajada. As the largest world, if the Sarkeesians need to decide on anything as a collective, they hold an open forum here. These meetings don't have a regular schedule or an announcement, so actually attending one is mostly a matter of luck. Otherwise, Sajada is mostly concerned with raising the many children that are born here, who are taken care of collectively by the caretakers that spend their time here, allowing others to continue their wanderings while knowing their families are taken care of. Again, it's kind of a weird dichotomy. They collectively raise their children so they can act more individualistically. The other major Sarkeesian settlement in the Diaspora is Nisus, which holds 3 large aquatic dome settlements. The Sarkeesians here remain ready to evacuate to the surface at a moment's notice should the mysterious creatures that lurk in the depths attack. The current belief is that these creatures, known as the Diaspora worms, live in a gigantic miles-wide coral reef system deep inside the planet's ocean called the Brood Nest. Their attacks have been increasing in recent years with a specific focus on the city of Aando. Making matters more complicated is the darkening of the waters of Nessus, which started spreading to the river between. The river began darkening and slowing, before recently drying up completely as the arcane machinery powering it failed. It hasn't actually gone away though, but rather seems to have been transformed, or maybe untransformed. Once a river of water flowing from Nessus through the Diaspora, the river between has turned into a stream of solar energy that winds between the asteroids. The Sarkeesians that live here feel an innate connection to this new manifestation, and many believe it is the true form of the river, which their ancestors converted into a stream of water to facilitate their survival centuries ago. Now it's simply reverted back to what it originally was, its aquatic form no longer necessary. Though many who depended on the river for fresh water disagree, now much more dependent on water recyclers and outside help than they were before. What the actual truth of it is remains unknown. What also remains in the Diaspora is several old sites from the past, still as mysterious as ever. The House of the Void and their acolytes remain out here, contemplating the mysterious emptiness of space. Though their actual views are known to very few outside the Order, they worship an aspect of an outer god called the Empty Traveler. This being is closely connected to another entity worshipped on the far-off planet of Octurne. But to date, no connection between the two groups has been observed, and given recent events, I doubt there will be a collaboration anytime soon. Don't worry, we'll get there when we get there. The Wailing Stone remains abandoned, though evidence suggests that it was used as a prison at some point in the past. What little record remains shows that prisoners inside were slowly driven mad, rambling about seeing the sign and a figure in tattered yellow rags. The stewards have quarantined the place, and some are floating the idea of using it as a prison complex again for dangerous Pact World criminals, but I think that will end poorly, considering the powers that are likely involved here. The vacant halls, however, have changed. They are no longer vacant and instead called the Congregant Halls. Just after the gap ended, an Anacite named Intricate Grey Cube discovered the halls and determined there must be a method to their madness. It gathered a few like-minded individuals and attempted to map the halls. This effort continues 2 centuries later. The halls just seem to break every rule and bend them all out of shape. However, IGC believes it's not a question of if, just a matter of when, they'll crack the message this place is trying to send. Others believe the Anacite is under a spell and in over their head, but is too far gone to do anything but see this project all the way to the end. Whatever the results, they'll definitely stand out, I can say that much. As for new locations, a good one to start with is the Archon's Halo. Technically a research station, the Halo is highly militarized. It's maintained by the Disciples of the Sixth Rune, a Lashunta sect of the Church of Oloratu, god of secrets and magic. The Halo studies many of the strange phenomena that exist in the Diaspora. This would normally not be too strange, but the sect is oddly aggressive when it comes to investigation, and the stewards have classified them as a hostile group after a number of confrontations resulted in numerous casualties. The sect's leader, Galia Seach, does their best to smooth things over, but many think they are simply buying time for whatever it is the disciples are studying. The Halo is located near a site called Havanak's Vortex, an empty region of space that hides one of the most dangerous things in the Diaspora. Twice a year, a powerful gravitational anomaly appears and sucks in everything within 10,000 miles of the center of the vortex, funneling it into a plane known as the Maelstrom. This process, while not safe in the slightest, is not inherently deadly, as the man whom the vortex is named for, Azirian Havanak, entered and returned several times, though he never did return from his last expedition and no one has braved the vortex since, at least not intentionally. Another nearby location that the Halo studies is the Phantom Rift, which appears almost like a heat mirage in space. Roughly the size of a planet, ships passing through don't feel any immediate effect, though some passengers report a sense of something off as they get through. Inside the Phantom Rift is a small planetoid called the Threshold Enigma, which has 101 locked doors on the exterior. For centuries, nothing was able to open these doors, despite thousands attempting the puzzles on them. Recent events have triggered a hidden condition though, and now one of them has opened. A crew has already been inside and claimed for salvage, though their luck ran out when they got back out and started bragging about their find, and the treasure has now scattered across the Diaspora as their bodies go cold. The last anomaly that Archon's Halo is studying is the Hum, a region of space littered with destroyed ships. Inside is an incredible impossibility, as any ship entering begins vibrating in sync with a strange humming noise that gives the region its name. The hum gradually becomes audible the longer you're in there, and by the time most species hear it, they're doomed. By that point, the ship has started vibrating in sync enough to compromise its integrity, and it will shake itself apart unless you can get out fast. Unfortunately, the hum also interferes with navigation, so actually steering out of it is incredibly difficult. Doubly so because the sound of the hum causes irritation and paranoia in any species that hears it, meaning most crews tear each other apart about as fast as their ship tears itself apart. The hum isn't the only place in the Diaspora that has a strange effect on the mind, though Parlay's effects are a lot less deadly. Simply a small asteroid covered in alien ruins, Parley does exactly one thing, which is prevent anyone within a few miles of the location from telling a lie, similar to the effect of some powerful magic. Because of this property, Parley is often used as a meeting site for negotiation between free captains, who can trust everything said within. A site the free captains avoid is the abattoir, the kind of place that sounds great unless you know what the word abattoir means. Once a pirate stronghold that was occupied before the council solidified its power, the abattoir was used by the Bone Sages of Eox as a prison for some horrible thing, which slaughtered the pirates that attempted to make their home here. It's been quarantined ever since, though there are rumors that the pirates that were killed here have risen as an undead crew. Undead are actually pretty common out here, given how close we are to Eox. We'll touch more on them in the next video, but they are the source of a rogue group that still plagues the Pact Worlds, the Corpse Fleet. During its early days, the Corpse Fleet held a base in the Diaspora called Cairn, which currently sits abandoned after they moved on to avoid the stewards cracking down. Though there likely is some good salvage here, most stay away because you never know what kind of surprises the Corpse Fleet left behind. One of those surprises might have been the blockade, but no one knows for sure. Well, actually, we know it's not the Corpse Fleet specifically, because they didn't exist until the formation of the Pact, and the blockade predates that, but the fleet's undead members are immortal and used to be part of Eox's military, so maybe one of them did it when they were legit, we don't know. The point is, the blockade is a series of mines, thankfully easily avoided by ships, that explode in a burst of void energy when hit. These mines aren't mechanical, they're technically undead creatures that contain a small portal to the void inside them. This allows the mines to rebuild after exploding, effectively making the minefield infinite. This is bad, but what's worse is that the blockade seems to be slowly expanding. Fingers continue to be pointed at Eox for this whole boondoggle, especially from Sarkeesians, who have few reasons to trust the neighbors they believe blew up their planet in the first place. But again, no one actually knows for sure who caused this. Oh, that reminds me, did you know that it's actually theoretically possible to see the destruction of Damiar and Iovo? All you need to do is head out towards the Horicalcum comet dubbed EC-40. It's really easy to find because the comet seems to be sliding through space at an incredibly slow rate. Like, really weirdly slow. Sensors also detect a ship in close proximity to the comet, which is actually an ancient Versite Aether ship. The Gloaming was set out to investigate EC-40 before the gap, and they made an important discovery. The comet's composition and proximity to the exploding planet resonated in a way that trapped the entire thing in a time loop, replaying the destruction of Damiar over and over again. The Gloaming is now caught in the same time loop. Other expeditions have gone in and attempted to figure out how to free the Gloaming and break the loop, but none have ever emerged. Though, you'd think that those other ships would show up on sensors, but only the Gloaming has ever been spotted, which is also very weird. Alright, I'm running out of transitions between random spots, so we're just gonna hit the last few places in alphabetical order, which means our next site, doesn't actually have a known location, just a rumored spot whose location you can totally buy from me for 50 credits. Definitely not a scam, I promise. The Ascendant Shard is a mythical rock rumored to exist in the Diaspora. Some say it's the shard of a dead god, others say it's part of the original meteorite that became the Starstone. One guy told me it's something called the Heart of Rock and Roll and that it's still beating. Whatever it is, people believe that anyone who finds it will have their wildest dreams granted as the shard ascends them, just like the Starstone was rumored to do. There are just enough credible statements to keep the rumors alive, most recently being a ship that attempted to dock at Absalom Station before violently imploding for completely unknown reasons. Chainbreaker 1 is the headquarters of the Android Abolition Front, which works tirelessly to break the chains around all mechanical life in the system. Only the organization's leadership, the council called Ex Novo, permanently resides here, along with their guards and support staff. Androids have been legally free in the Pact World since 154, but unlawful and unregulated systems still continue to manufacture them directly into indentured servitude, and the AAF will continue the fight until none are born in bondage. The Ferribarium is a trade ship salvaged by a group of Ysoki after the Knights of Galarian abandoned it for the small matter of, let me just check my notes here, extensive structural damage. Okay, that's a good reason to abandon a ship, I guess. Not wanting to waste a perfectly good hunk of space metal, the Shisek Kaya group snatched it up and rebuilt the thing to working order in about 2 years. Now it serves as a mobile trade and repair station floating through the Diaspora, kept safe from the free captains by a lucrative protection contract that guarantees pirate ships priority access to any repair bays. The footprint of the first ones is actually a fragment of Iovo's moon, drifting through the Diaspora on an erratic orbit compared to everything else. Partly this is because its orbit brings it near the Phantom Rift, which sends it spinning off for a while before the orbit corrects itself. The name comes from a large sealed mechanical facility located inside an impact crater. Resembling the machine forges of Abalon, but made from a different metal than we usually see, this facility seems active, albeit running on reserve power. Nothing from inside has ever reached out, so we don't know if they're in trouble or not, but given the returning presence of the first ones in the galaxy, that can change at any moment. The Forgotten King is a gigantic humanoid skull about 12 miles in diameter, made out of an unknown ceramic. Covering the Forgotten King is a massive amount of carved script that resists magical translation, meaning scholars are having to figure it out manually, like non-magical peasants. What little we have deciphered speaks of a long-forgotten ruler and their ancient treasure hidden away for the finding, as if there aren't enough hidden caches out in the Diaspora. Hopefully they just left it all in one piece. From head to foot, we move on to the Giant's Toe, so named because it looks like, well, I think you can guess. This would be an unremarkable rock, except it happens to contain fossilized remains of a species of nematode that could grow into about a foot long, the implications of which are myriad and fascinating. Oh, and also any divination on the rock causes weird glowing runes to appear above the caster's head for a while and might cause prophetic dreams, but that's like just whatever, guys. Guys, nematodes! Fossilized nematodes, that's what we need to focus on here. Lastly, we have a few stations that float in the Diaspora, acting as strongholds for a bunch of different factions. Geostation is a Veskarium outpost that sits in the Diaspora, orbiting in sync with the planet of Verces. About 3,000 Vesk soldiers and a small fleet of support ships live here, with supply drops and troop rotations happening every 72 weeks when a battleship docks at the station. What exactly the station is doing here is unknown, even in the wider Veskarium. Refuge is a small asteroid currently occupied by a group of androids calling themselves Refugists. Their current project is the creation of an artificial android homeworld using tractor beams and gravitational engines to pull together their own large landmass. They accept other androids to the cause, but demand that anyone joining them leave their old life behind. The free captains have approached Refuge for security negotiations, but have been rebuffed. Time will tell if that's a good idea or not. And lastly, we have Songbird Station, a small temple to Shelyn situated out here in the vastness of space. When the gap ended, Shelyn still existed, but had left the universe at some point, looking into the darkness between stars for a way to help her brother Dobral, possibly reversing his transformation into Zon Cathan. Many of her worshippers reported that she would still grant spells and powers, but felt distant. Her followers have been left to their own devices, and one of their current projects is Songbird Station, which aims to bring light and hope to the Diaspora through art and music. It's hosted concerts and performances from all across the Pact World, including the objectively best sugar pop group, Strawberry Machine Cake, and hopes that with enough light and love, Shelyn's voice will echo into the stars and bring harmony to the universe. Recent events that we'll get into in our final video have caused an uproar here, but talking about exactly what they are would be spoilers. I'm gonna string this along for a while, just you watch. And that is our final stop in the Diaspora. It's been a long and winding road to slip between the asteroid belt, but we're now out on the other side. If I had to describe the Diaspora quickly, I'd probably perish, because you've seen how long these videos tend to get. But if I had to, it would be haphazard. Very little out here really creates a cohesive whole, doubly so in the Starfinder timeline where anyone with a ship can land on a rock and declare it their new kingdom. You get a random mishmash of cultures, people, and ideas just kinda floating around out here, occasionally careening into one another. The main unifying force out here could be the Sarkeesians, and their attempt to form an actual government is the first step in that direction, but most of their people are completely unconcerned with this, just going with the cosmic flow. In all, the whole place out here is just a chaotic mess, and both the free captains and I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you, finders of the paths and the stars, for taking a look at the Diaspora with me. What was your favorite rock in the pile? I honestly can't decide, there's just so much to see here with such a huge variety of possible adventure hooks that it's difficult to just pick one. Don't like the feel of a place in the Diaspora? Just drive next door and you'll likely find something completely different. But I am curious to hear what you all think. Leave a comment down below, and while you're there, check out the link to our socials and our Patreon. Until next time, keep your eyes on those stars, and explore, report, and cooperate.